You see a kitchen in my van. I see a chain of consequences. We chose an elevator bed, we wanted a full bathroom, and I needed as much open space as we could possibly get. The refrigerator and the microwave have to be at waist level. We carry enough water to be uninterrupted on long trips. In between and around all of that, we needed a fully functional kitchen and places for our clothing, food, appliances, and other storage. This floor space must be able to accommodate 2 adults and 2 dogs at the same time. None of the design decisions made in this kitchen were made independently. Each requirement and decision impacted the next. And this kitchen is where a lot of those consequences came together. This is not a build video, by the way. I did that in previous episodes. You can see how I built and constructed all of these cabinets on both sides and worked around all the constraints. This is more of a discussion about how everything came together and why it is the way it is. It delves into my design philosophies and my approach to building. So if you're here to see how the kitchen was built, just check out those previous episodes. But if you want to know why it was built this way and all of my thinking that went into it, stick around. We've got a good episode. Throughout this build, I've always tried to start with the same type of question. What problem am I trying to solve? And for the kitchen, there were many. In a house, you can start with pretty standard dimensions. 24-inch cabinets, 36-inch tall countertops, 8-foot tall ceilings, mostly square walls, floors and ceiling. Not in a van. It's a 6-foot wide metal box with curved walls and serious space limitations. So instead of conventional kitchen dimensions, I had to start with the constraints and work inward. The bed fixed one end, the bathroom fixed the other, and believe it or not, this refrigerator determined the width of the hallway. But more on that in a minute. Let's start here. The elevator bed takes up the first 7 feet of van space. When raised, it gives us a really nice open concept living room. When lowered, this entire section of the van becomes the bedroom and not really usable for anything else. That creates 2 consequences. The obvious one is space. We're taking 7 feet of the 13 feet available. This is a Ram ProMaster 159 extended, which means that we have 13 feet of living space from the cab to the back doors, and we're taking up 7 of those 13, leaving 6 feet left for kitchen and bathroom. Now, the bed itself is not 7 feet long. It's exactly 72 inches, 6 feet long. Where did we lose that extra foot of space? Part of it is taken up here. This is the actual start of the living space where this cushion ends right here. I couldn't put the partition wall up against that for 2 reasons. One, we need to have the space, the legroom space, for the seats to be able to come back and recline. So that would have been encroaching on that area. The other thing is that the van curves in here at the front, meaning that if you wanted a bed 60 inches wide, you couldn't shove it all the way forward because it's too narrow. So at this point, the bed is as far forward as I can get it while still maintaining a 60-inch width. So a lot of calculations went into this. Suffice to say, it takes up 7 feet of space overall in the van. But wait, there's more. The bed created another problem: storage. With a conventional fixed bed, you can have cabinets up on the wall above it. That's where most people keep their clothing and personal items. Elevator bed doesn't allow us to have that storage. We gained all of this open living space and made a dual purpose living room bedroom, but intentionally lost out on the storage opportunities above the bed. At the other end of the kitchen, I have another non-negotiable dimension: the bathroom. Now, I didn't start out by saying, hey, I want to have a bathroom with these dimensions. I started out by saying, what's the smallest bathroom that I could get away with building, yet still maintain full functionality of a shower, the toilet, the sink, and the storage? Turns out that dimension is 30 inches. Let's start with the shower pan. It's 24 inches wide. I believe that that's probably the minimum width I would want to try to shower in, as well as have the toilet drawer come out into and occupy the space. But that's only the beginning. Then you have to add this 1-inch profile extruded aluminum here. This is a decorative access panel to be able to get underneath the shower pan in the event that I need to get under there and fix something. We also have dimensions to account for in terms of the toilet itself and additional plumbing items. So you might be able to see through here that we do have the toilet drawer back there, and we have the filtration system for the recirculating shower and UV light in this cabinet. And you also have to understand how the van curves towards the back. You can't take a rectangular shower pan and shove it all the way to the back door and that wall at the same time. So after pushing the shower pan all the way to that wall and pulling it towards the back of the van as far as I could get it to go, we've got a gap back here from where the shower pan ends and the rear doors begin. So all of those things added up came to the 30 inches required for the bathroom space. The bed fixed the front boundary, the bathroom fixed the rear boundary, and what was left was 42 inches. So that's how we arrived at this dimension. I didn't choose 42 inches because I thought it seemed like a good kitchen size. 42 inches chose me because that's all the van allowed me to have after the other constraints. But length was only half the equation. The other half was width. To get that really open floor plan feeling, I wanted the widest hallway I could possibly get away with. And the one single item that determined the width of the van's hallway is the refrigerator. I knew I wanted a refrigerator at this height. I did not want it on the ground. I didn't want to crawl around on the floor every time I needed to get into the refrigerator. Why? Because if it's on the floor, for one thing, the dogs would be right in there every time I opened it. And a person getting down here on the floor to get into the refrigerator pretty much takes up the entire hallway. No matter how you try to position yourself, you're taking up a lot of valuable floor space. And you know that doesn't work well for me. Also, it might be worth mentioning, I'm not getting any younger. I know that's a surprise, but there may come a time when getting down here on the floor and getting back up is not going to happen. We built this van for the long run. We hope to own it for a very, very long time. And I build towards all of those use cases and scenarios that I think may be a current or future failure point. And this is just one of those things. Putting a refrigerator at this height is a problem in a van. The walls aren't straight. They taper in the higher you go. That means whatever distance you have at the floor is not the same distance from the wall you have at this height or this height or this height. Most 12-volt refrigerators are designed for a 24-inch deep cabinet. You might find a compact one that you could get away with in a 20-inch cabinet. Those didn't work for me. I spent a lot of time researching the shallowest depth 12-volt decent quality refrigerator that I could find, and this is the one I came up with. It's the Isotherm Slim 70. It can be installed in a cabinet that is 16.5 inches deep, and that single dimension is what determined the depth of this entire wall from the sliding door all the way to the bathroom, and that is what gave us our hallway width. The refrigerator came first, the cabinet depth followed, and then on the driver's side, it was a similar situation. We were trying to determine the optimal depth or minimal depth we could get away with for a bench in the living room, as well as the base cabinet for the sink. After a lot of trial and error in both areas, we determined that a 20-inch depth was going to be the optimal size for comfort in the living room and depth for this part of the kitchen, where we're going to have a sink that's not too small, not too big, and still maintain room for the faucet and enough counter space to be able to work with. So the space left between the 20 inches here and the 18 inches there was 34 inches. And that matters for many reasons. For one, when the bed is down, 2 adults and 2 dogs have to occupy this space. I know it's just for a few minutes twice a day as the bed is coming down and as the bed is going up, but That's important. And through normal everyday use, we want the open concept look and feel. We want open space. I want to have a comfortable space where someone can be here at the sink doing whatever you need to do, and the other person can comfortably move through this space, whether it's to get to the bathroom or in and out the back door, for whatever reason. This needs to be enough space so that you don't feel cramped. I didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I want to have a 34-inch wide hallway. That seems to be perfect to me. It was quite the opposite. It was figure out the shallowest cabinetry we could have along this wall, figure out the shallowest cabinetry we could have on this wall, and then what's left is the hallway. Now, of course, I wanted to maximize that, so I went out of my way to design each of the sides with a wide hallway in mind, but the final dimension of 34 inches was a consequence of the passenger and driver side cabinetry. I wasn't just trying to protect physical floor space, I was also trying to protect the openness of the van. A van is small. A person can feel very confined in small spaces. Susan and I didn't want to feel closed in. So yes, I sacrificed storage for the open floor plan, but for the way we travel, that was more important to us. This is a perfect example of the trade-off. This area right here, you can see how much open space we have. Doesn't that look nice? A lot of people will prefer to have some sort of storage here. I gave up the storage from the countertop to the ceiling on purpose to maintain this sight line. But most people would probably put storage here, about 43 inches. So I could have had quite a bit of storage to be used for either an appliance garage from the kitchen where we could store a lot of the things we need, or from the back I could access it as a garage, where you could split the difference and have the access from the front as well as the back. I didn't do that on purpose. So I intentionally gave up that storage knowing full well what I was giving up. Whether the rear doors are open or closed, this openness was worth it to me. I value this open space more than I value a garage in this location. Quick recap. The elevator bed eliminated the option for over-the-bed storage that you would normally have with a fixed bed. The 34-inch hallway minimized the cabinet depths on each side, which eliminated some storage. I intentionally missed out on a garage. And then we put big water tanks on both sides of the kitchen. So at this point, storage has become a real engineering problem. I had to use the little space I had left as efficiently as possible. One of the great things about our ProMaster super high roof, besides the fact you can walk under the bed without having to duck, is that I was able to install 20-inch tall cabinets for my uppers. Now, most vans that are high roofs allow for maybe a 10 to 12-inch tall cabinet, and they're all in this style here, typically, which is just a lift up. But we had the opportunity to do the 20-inch tall, and that provided a tremendous amount of storage space. And this is not only 20 inches tall, it's 66 inches long. Now, the countertop is 72 inches long. Why aren't the uppers? The van curves in at the top and the back. So that's as far back as I could go with the upper cabinet just because of the van geometry. But the countertop was able to go practically to the back door. Now, when I went van shopping, I intentionally sought out and bought the super high roof van because I knew I was going to have an elevator bed, DIY or Happy Jack, one way or another, we were going to have one. And I knew it wasn't going to be over a dinette, so we were going to have to walk under it. And I also knew at that time that storage was going to be a problem. I fully understood the dynamic of the situation I was creating for myself with all of my requirements. And so the 20-inch tall cabinets were part of that solution from day one, only now, 2 years later, coming to fruition. And the story continues on the passenger side. Now remember, we gave up the over-bed storage that most people use on a fixed bed. We installed the elevator bed eliminated that storage as a possibility. So where do we keep our clothing and personal items? That had to be moved into the kitchen. So whereas you might see a standard kitchen wall with refrigerator and microwave, it's beyond that. It's not only refrigerator, microwave, it is our wardrobe, our pantry, junk drawer, and miscellaneous storage area, all in this one space. And remember, this cabinet's only 18 inches deep at the base and a lot less deep as we go higher in the van. Let's check out the wardrobe first. So this entire cabinet is for our clothing and personal items. I didn't install drawers because I wanted to maximize the usable space in here. If you have drawers, then you're losing space for the slides as well as the drawer boxes and all the extra clearances you need to accommodate that. So instead, what we wanted to do was baskets. You can take these baskets into the house, load them up with your clothes, bring them out, put them in here, and you're good to go. We're maximizing the amount of storage space that we have to work with and making a workflow that's easy for us to do. And all of that makes getting ready for a trip really easy, as well as cleaning everything up in here after a trip. You just grab all the baskets and take them in. I put a mirror inside the door and also an electrical outlet back here in the cabinet for the express purpose of being able to use this as a walk-in closet. So this is not kitchen storage that happens to contain clothing. This was specifically designed to replace the storage we lost above the bed and truly to function as a walk-in closet. Using our blackout curtain that normally separates the cab from the living space and some magnets, we simply take the magnet and the curtain and attach it to the Happy Jack rail. Whether showering and changing or just changing, it truly does make that entire space a walk-in closet. So what am I trying to solve with that? I know most people don't need something like this. This is our use case. One person is showering or changing, whatever. The other person is in the living room and wants to be able to have the door open or to go in and out the door. That creates a privacy issue because our wardrobe area is in the kitchen, not the bathroom. So the person on this side of the curtain is able to get out of the shower, dry off fully, get their clothing out of the wardrobe, change here. You've got space to spread out if you need to have, your deodorant or your hair dryer or brush, whatever you need. You've got counter space, you've got a mirror, you've got electrical outlets. You're pretty well set. And you don't have to worry about the other person going in and out of the van or just sitting there with the door open. Getting back to the kitchen, above the refrigerator is the pantry. Same basic idea as the wardrobe. We're not going to use drawers in here because that takes up too much space. So we opted again for the shelves. And instead of baskets, we just have open space. Now we may bring things out in baskets or boxes, and if that fits up in here as is, that's fine. We'll do that. And if not, then we unpack that basket or box and then just put the pantry items up in there. My top shelf is recessed a little bit. It doesn't come all the way towards the door, and that's for a couple reasons. One, we may want to have taller items in here that go past this shelf. And if we have a tall item, we could put that on the end and it could stick up however far it needs to stick up. Sometimes cereal boxes are really tall. And if we don't have that situation, then we have space for these little spices here. So these come off if we have a tall item. Again, no tall item, spices go here. You can also see the bottom of our spices are labeled. That way you don't have to go digging through all of them to figure out what's what. Sometimes it's the little things. Normally the cabinets under the kitchen sink would give you a fair amount of storage. Not here. We have a water tank that takes up the entire space from here, all the way past here. And where I don't have water tank, I have plumbing and electrical taking up a lot of space on this far cabinet here. So instead of using this as conventional cabinet space, I looked for the in-between areas that were left. On this door, I have enough room for a little garbage can attached to the back of the door. Now I have a little more depth on this one because the water tank only goes to about here, and that's enough space for that to close. These two doors have the water tank behind it, and I have a very small amount of space there, as well as extruded aluminum framing around the tank, mounting plastic bins that are about 2.5 inches deep on the backs of the doors. And I have my storage here for aluminum foil, plastic wrap, sandwich bags, miscellaneous storage, anything that'll fit in there. And then on this one, I have all of our little cleaners in these small bottles, as well as a fire extinguisher for kitchen fires. All of these are so that they don't rattle around and make noise while we're going down the road. Just want to make sure we don't forget to get the drawers. I keep my plates in this basket so they don't rattle around and make noise. So far, these haven't made a lot of noise. These are plastic, so even if they bang up against each other, it's not percussive enough for me to really worry about it. So it's worked out really well. I keep some coffee supplies and coffee mugs here. Just haven't put that back in the van since I washed them. Miscellaneous storage, a basket for dog treats and other storage. This is where we keep our pots and pans, and pantry items can go up there. And then over here, again, overflow, things that we're not going to use every day are going to go over here. Individually, that's not a lot of storage, but when you add it all up, every little bit helps. The water tank over here didn't just affect the storage I had available, it also affected the height of the countertop. This countertop is 38 inches tall. Now in a house, you would normally have a counter that's 36 inches, so how did I get 38? Did I wake up one day and just say, hey, I think 38-inch countertops would be the perfect height? No, it's a consequence of other decisions that I made through the build. So the water tank is this high, and then the sink that we chose and the countertop material that we chose puts the bottom of the sink pretty much right here. And then the plumbing that I needed to come from the bottom of the sink that's over top of the water tank, it required, about this much space. While I don't have those specific measurements in inches today, you can see how one thing affected the other. I quite literally have zero clearance available for the components that I chose to be able to be stacked together. The consequence of selecting these components for this part of the kitchen dictated the height of the counters. This is literally resting on top of the plug. Now I could have relocated this to be over top of here and I'd gain 1/2 inch, but it just didn't make sense to worry about it for 1/2 inch. Speaking of the kitchen countertop, if you're going to stand here for doing dishes or prepping or washing up, whatever you do at the kitchen countertop, the height of the counter is not the only thing that matters. I also built a toe kick into the cabinet. It lets you stand directly against the counter with your feet tucked neatly underneath. That does a couple of things. One, look at how much space we have here. If I didn't have a toe kick, my body would be pushed out further into the aisle, reducing the amount of space other people would have to pass through. The other thing is more ergonomic. When you're working on something like this with your arms out, the ability to step up to the counter and lean against it helps your lower back tremendously. It's much better than being hunched over and trying to do work like this for any amount of time. The consequence of adding this feature is that I lost out again on a storage opportunity. If I had this go all the way to the floor, I could have used that space down there on the floor for something. A few minutes ago, we talked about how proud I was of my 20-inch cabinets. Well, here's the exception. The cabinet over the sink had to be pushed up. So once again, we're giving up storage to accommodate a specific use case for how we travel. In the recirculating shower, you can't use normal soap or shampoo. It ends up clogging up the filters, so you can't do it. So we use a special biodegradable soap, and we use that same soap for body wash as well as shampoo. Now that works fine for me. Other people are not as happy about it. So if you wanted to wash your hair with normal shampoo, you have to do it at the kitchen sink. So whether you're brushing your teeth here or washing your hair here, you will likely be bending over at the sink. And if you're bending over at the sink against a 20-inch cabinet, you will cause harm. That's the reason for the cabinet that's up here. Now, it didn't have to be this high. That was a function of another consequence of the cabinet design, because that's the halfway point And that made it easier for me to design, build, and install this as one piece. But there are other design aspects that I gravitate towards. One being symmetry, having similar things or the same thing on each side for that symmetrical effect. The other is halving. So where this is 20 inches tall, this is exactly half that at 10 inches. Those little design elements actually go a long way towards making the space feel correct to me. Let's move back to the passenger side and talk about the microwave for a minute. Now, the microwave height was a similar design choice as the refrigerator. I don't want to be crawling around on the floor. It doesn't make any sense to do that, to have a microwave down really low. I also didn't want to have it way up here. To me, that is dangerous. Imagine taking hot soup, or you heated up your coffee or something like that, and you're pulling it out of the microwave like this. Something happens, you catch it on the lip of whatever, you stumble, I don't know what, and it ends up going over your head. I'm going to prevent that at all costs. So the choice for me was to have the microwave here or to have it here. That allowed me to maximize the space of the wardrobe, and putting it here was a safety decision. It makes it really nice and easy to have it at this level, to pull something out at this level and get it up on the counter. Easy, safe, correct positioning for the microwave. Something else you might notice, since I have the door open, there is no turntable in here. Why is that? Well, let me ask you, why would you put a turntable and a microwave in a van, boat, or RV? To me, that's the question you should be asking. You end up having to do some remediation, like wrapping towels around it and shoving it back in there, or you just let it rattle and drive you crazy as you're going down the road. I'm not doing that. Also, take notice that there's no digital clock or LED timer on this microwave. Also very intentional. There are two parts of that. One is, because this runs off of AC current, and most people who operate an RV or a boat or van electrical system will turn their inverters off when not in use, because inverters consume an extraordinary amount of power even when you're not using them. So we turn it off constantly. If you have a clock on here, that clock is either going to be flashing 12 o'clock at you constantly, or it's going to be the incorrect time constantly. So for the 4 or 5 or 6 times I'm going to be turning the inverter on and off throughout a day or throughout a trip, I'm not dealing with that clock, okay? The other thing it will do is keep me up at night. The bed is right above where you are. It'll come down into this space. Any lights in here cause me problems when I'm trying to get to sleep. That initial time when you're trying to wind down, I have trouble with that. Now, those two things probably aren't requirements for most people, and that's okay if that's how you travel. But this is my van, and I know how we travel, and these things matter to me. So I go far out of my way to solve for these issues so that they don't become a problem. Stepping back to this side, we have the 42 inches, which comprises the primary kitchen working area. And then we go beyond that another 30 inches, all the way to the back doors. So we have 72 inches of countertop total. Now in the front part there, it's only 20 inches deep. But then as we get to this section, we get to 30 inches deep. So this is the section where the kitchen and the bathroom overlap. The toilet and the plumbing occupy the lower section of this cabinet, and from the countertop up is all kitchen. It's one piece of van real estate doing more than one job. Now in a house, I would never want a bathroom opening directly into the kitchen. It just doesn't seem right. I don't like it. In the van, apparently, I lowered my standards. Not only does this bathroom open into the kitchen, it actually has bathroom parts inside the kitchen. Gross. Hey, and did you notice there's no cooktop built into the counters? That's also on purpose. If we're cooking, we're going to use a portable induction cooktop. We have 2 of them, but normally we'll just use 1 at a time. On the rare occasion that we're going to use 2 of them, I made sure that I had enough electricity over here in the kitchen. Now, this is a 15 amp circuit. It's a GFCI. And underneath this cabinet on this wall, I have a 20 amp circuit that is a GFCI. Now, I didn't want to put 2 separate circuits up here on this counter. I didn't want to have this outlet and this outlet on a separate circuit. That didn't make sense to me to have cords running across if we needed to cook. This is the cook area here. We have this splash guard on the partition wall for easy cleanup, but this is generally the area that we do our cooking. We take it out when we need it, and we put it away when we don't need it, and that leaves a lot of counter space usable for other things. And you might be thinking, oh, you're just creating more storage problems for yourself, but actually they store really neatly right here in space that would otherwise not be very easy to store something right on top of the water tank. So this method allows us to use the maximum amount of counter space for other purposes. Now this is a GFCI, and this is an outlet that's hanging off of that in a daisy chain fashion. And I could have put a second circuit here, but I didn't want to have a power cord draped across the sink just so that I could cook over here in the cooking area, and I don't want to cook here because I don't have an exhaust fan here. I have an exhaust fan here. So this is a designated cooking area. This is where I need to have the cookers. And so how do I solve for that? I put a second circuit under the cabinet so that if we want to have both cookers here, I just lob the other power cord over the edge, go out the back door, pull it in, plug it in right up underneath this counter. So that is also a GFCI circuit, but I didn't want to stop there. I didn't want to install a dedicated circuit just for that occasional use case of having a second place to plug in the induction cooktop. So I extended that outlet to the back bumper, so I have AC electrical outside the van. And that opened up a lot of other possibilities, including cooking on a table outside if we wanted to, or running a projector TV or stereo or laptops, something like that. I have electricity outside the van for any use we want. One item solving more than one problem. I mentioned the fan a moment ago. This is the Max Air fan. I installed it in season 1. It does have the remote control, but honestly, since we put this elevated shower pan in here and it's easy to reach, we don't even use the remote control anymore. Even though it was installed during season 1 when we had the budget build and the fixed bed was here, I already knew what the layout of season 2 was going to look like, and that went a long way towards deciding this is the correct location to install the Max Air fan, because it gives me two things. It gives me the exhaust for the humidity in the shower, as well as whatever other odors you may produce in a bathroom that you'd like to have exhausted, as well as cooking. So this is the cooking surface here, and so all of this will also go right out that exhaust fan. So one fan, 2 spaces, 3 jobs. What's the third job? Well, the traditional use of a Max Air fan, which is ventilation for the rest of the van. Even though it's way back here, it still functions very well for ventilation. That's the kind of shared infrastructure and solutioning that I always try to do. One item should solve multiple problems whenever possible. Next, I want to talk about the water that comes out of this faucet. Our water tanks carry a lot of water. A lot of people have a separate system for their drinking water, whether it's bottled water that they carry separately or the special systems that they put under the sink, and they'd have a little spigot here and all the infrastructure for filters and UV light and all that is down here. So when I started thinking about the water coming out of this tap, I started thinking about we're using this for washing dishes, washing our hands, brushing our teeth, washing our hair. And I thought to myself, if you're going to go to all the trouble and expense of having these filters and UV lights and things for the drinking water, why not make it for the entire kitchen sink? All the water coming out of this faucet should be the same high quality as those dedicated drinking water systems. And that's what I built. All of my kitchen plumbing and components are completely separate from the bathroom. That's where we have our recirculating shower. And while we're okay with showering in recycled water, I'm going to draw the line at drinking it. No matter how many filters you want to put it through, I'm not drinking that water. So completely separate systems. So the kitchen water starts out the same type of spin down sediment filter as the recirculating shower, although it is a separate component. And then after the pump and accumulator tank, it goes into a 0.2 micron filter from Blue Technologies. This is the 2-stage filter system they have, and the second stage is the charcoal to improve the taste, I guess. After that, it goes into an LED UV light. This is important because the LED style UV light comes on and is effective instantly. That means you turn the tap on and every bit of that water coming through there has been treated and sterilized with that UV light. Traditional bulbs take time to heat up, and only when they're fully heated up, which could be minutes, are they effective. So it's important to get the correct UV light for this application if you're going to do this as well. And then I have a little point of service hot water heater, the same type of hot water heater we have for your circulating shower, but completely separate, the upgraded version, which has a little bit higher water flow. And I installed it right here underneath the sink. With a recirculating shower, I did a lot of modifications on that heater. This one is completely unmodified and gives us everything we need for the sink. I don't want high water flow here at the sink because this water does go directly to the gray tank. It's not recirculated, so we want to be conservative here. So the flow rate we have coming out of this sink, perfect for our needs. The goal was to treat the water we already had on board for all of our uses without carrying a separate water supply or bottled water or doing any other workarounds. One water supply, multiple uses. And yes, I do actually drink this water. Yeah, that's really good actually. So whether I'm washing my hands or the dishes or brushing my teeth or washing my hair, making coffee, getting water for the dogs, getting water for ourselves to drink, it's all one source of water, and everything coming out of this faucet is completely safe. The kitchen was one of the more interesting parts of the build for me. It's quite literally where all of the consequences of the rest of the van came together. It wasn't designed independently. Every major decision I made in this van showed up as a consequence here in this space for me to design around. The elevator bed fixed the front boundary. The bathroom fixed the rear boundary. The refrigerator defined the depth of this wall, and in doing so, the width of the hallway. The elevator bed, shallow cabinetry, and wide hallway limited the amount of storage we had in the van. My desire for an open floor plan made me intentionally turn down storage opportunities in exchange for the open space. The water tanks consumed most of the lower cabinetry, leading to additional storage deficits, as well as leading to the height of this kitchen countertop. The loss of storage above the bed led directly to putting the wardrobe here, which directly led to the ability to have a walk-in closet and maximize the use of this space. The install location as well as the type of microwave solves many things for us, one of which is safety and the other is livability. The cooktops are portable, so we solve problems with counter space requirements as well as open up the possibility of cooking outside when we want to. And speaking of cooking outside, the electrical system supports both the internal components as well as external use cases for cooking or portable projector or whatever we want to do out there that needs power. The Max Air fan serves 3 functions: kitchen, bathroom, and general ventilation. The all-in-one water system, whether you want to drink it, use it for washing dishes, washing hands, brushing teeth, whatever you want to use it for, it's safe. One system, multiple uses, and it makes traveling so much easier. You can just turn on the faucet and use it for whatever you want. You don't have to worry about it. And if designing for all of those challenges wasn't enough, I also had to maintain the aesthetic of the MooseVan from end to end, and that included the kitchen. The blue colors that we have in the living room on the cushions as well as the rug is carried through the kitchen, not only with the rug, but the backsplash. Those same blue hues are carried into the bathroom by way of the sink. The solid surface countertops in the kitchen are the exact same countertops that are in the living room and the bathroom. In fact, they all came from the same slab. You can find that fabrication and install series in previous episodes. And of course, the cabinetry is the same throughout the van. It's all extruded aluminum framing with this pre-finished 3/4 inch plywood with a birch finish on it. The same knobs and switches, all of that carried throughout the entire van creates a lot of continuity. And for me, that's just an extension of the open concept. Adding that aesthetic continuity throughout goes a long way towards making this a very calming, cohesive space to exist in. So you see a kitchen, and I see chain of consequences. The kitchen being the culmination of all of those design and engineering decisions that we had made previously, all came together in this one little space, forcing their constraints and consequences on our kitchen. The intent was to document the most challenging aspect of requirements versus constraints that I experienced in my van, which just happened to come together here in the kitchen, and use that to convey a building philosophy that I've used throughout all of Season 1 and Season 2 of MooseVan to date. You start by asking yourself, what problem am I trying to solve? And then you fully understand the materials, the environment, the constraints, the consequences, and you let all of those things guide you towards the solution. Even when that solution isn't something you would normally do, or what you originally had in mind. Put all of those things together and then build a solution that's right for you with your constraints and your requirements, because you're the one who has to live with it. As always, thank you so much for joining us. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you next time.